G'day ladies and gents, welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome back aboard the Horton 229. First things first, sorry about the rather soft tone of voice tonight. I have to keep the volumes down. It is very late at night here at the moment while I'm recording this, and everybody's asleep. I am the last silly bastard awake past midnight. So why am I back in the Ho 229? I make a habit of never playing the same plane 2 videos in a row. Well, in this case I think it was something I needed to do. A couple of things popped up after the last video that I did want to address. The first thing, go to this battle. The person who is on my squad at the moment is just auto-assigned. A few people made comments that the Ho is practically impossible to fly unless you are in a squad. This is not the case. I'm alone here. The squad mate that I have in this battle has been auto-assigned because I have yet to see a need to actually turn the auto-squad assignment system off. But there are no comms, I'm not flying out with anyone I know, this entire battle is random. Now the second thing. In the last video, my first impressions of the Ho 229, the first thing I did is I ran over what the design parameters for the Ho were, what the production model would have been like, and then what the V3 and the V2 was actually equipped with. So basically refined down what is the plane that we have. I then went through what the aircraft should be capable of doing and then compared it to the aircraft in-game, and is it capable of doing what the prototype did in real life, or specifically using the V2 because the V3 never flew. And the answer is no. The V3 that we have in-game is incapable of achieving even the speeds that the V2 with restricted engine performance could and was recorded as achieving in real life during its test flights. Now that video was a first impression, so the aircraft was not fully upgraded at the time, but I was taking into account the performance of the aircraft at its current level of modification and what it should achieve with engine upgrades to give me an end result, and it was coming out at about, roughly 25%, 20 to 25% underpowered. Now that 25% lower performance actually matched up against the restrictions that were applied to the V2 prototype. Now the V2 prototype was restricted down to only 75% of maximum engine power, and I was assuming that Gaijin, trying to build the most accurate flight model they could on what is effectively a very, very prototype aircraft, almost a paper plane, had actually used the flight data from the V2 to build the flight model, to get us as close as we possibly can. And honestly, I was impressed that they went to that sort of effort to do so. Well, it turns out I was wrong. You see, the problem I ran into it is I couldn't think of a way of actually testing engine performance, so I was only working with the figures that I was able to pull out of the match, and the numbers I was looking at matched up. However, it was pointed out to me after somebody posted the video to the Reddit forums, and a few people jumped onto it and started tearing around my theory a little bit. They brought up a way using the external map, or the browser map, that I could actually check engine performance on the 229 against another aircraft equipped with the Jumo engine, specifically the Messerschmitt 262. Upon performing these tests, as was suggested, it turned out that the 229 is producing exactly the same thrust levels as the 262. Now, does that mean the plane's flight model is correct? No, it's still too slow. The numbers still don't match up that way. What it means is this is not an accidental mistake created as a result of Gaijin trying to use the only known flight data for any of the Horton 229s to create an accurate model in-game. It just means that Gaijin fucked another flight model. So as my 229 climbs into the clouds and begins to go super luminous as a result of the new reflections Gaijin has installed in, something else popped up as a result of that video, something that I really hadn't considered much. In the comments for that video, Lucian Willie asks, do I think the Ho 229 is balanced for its current BR, regardless of the accuracy of its flight model? And I didn't even have to think about the answer. Yes, for its current performance, the BR it's at is perfectly fine. There's no problem with it at all. In fact, if the aircraft's flight model was corrected, it would need to have its BR increased. And that's when I came to a realization. I don't want Gaijin to fix this plane. Right now, the 229 at its current BR is facing aircraft that, should it have gone into production, should the war not have ended when it did in Europe, that it would have wound up facing. At its current BR, its primary allies are long-nosed D-13s, very late model 109s, and the 162, along with the Arado, all aircraft that were in service for Germany at the end of the war. Its primary enemies are the P-80 and aircraft like the early Meteors. These are aircraft that were also completed and in service at the end of the war. Now, none of them saw combat together, but should the war have continued, it is inevitable that they would have. In fact, at the 229's current BR, the only two notable aircraft that are missing from matches is the P-51D Mustang, which at battle rating 5 can only get into matches with the 229 if it fail platoons itself up with something like a premium Spitfire, and the 262, which is battle rated too high to be in this battle. Everything else is here. And speaking of P-80s, here's my first victim. Line up a long-range snipe, first shots off, and first kill. Bring the guns around to engage the second P-80. Fire too high, unfortunately. Didn't bring the nose down enough. The yaw rate of the aircraft actually got me there. I take a couple of hits to the belly, but no major damage. Now I quickly bring the nose around as fast as I can, but still maintain very careful usage of the controls. I do not want to rip my wings in this thing at the moment, especially at the speeds I'm going at over 700. I do have an F-80C behind me, so I'm getting as much airspeed as I can. I want to pursue down this P-80, but I do not want to let that F-80 catch me. Thankfully it looks like it's heading in the other direction. Now, at the time of this battle, I did not have the aircraft spaded. It still has the engine upgrade left to go, I believe. However, I have unlocked every other modification to the aircraft. Now, what I have found is that while the aircraft is still incapable of reaching its historical level flight speeds, or the historical level flight speeds capable by the V2, its energy retention is exceptional. If you go into a dive and build up a large amount of speed, the plane retains it very, very, very well. As you can see, I'm losing very little speed here, providing I don't wiggle the wings. Maintaining speed with this P-80 as a result. Just trying a couple of long-range snipes, seeing if I can manage to take him out. The good part about the high velocity and low fire rate of these guns means that long-range sniping is very easy. Each click of the mouse you only fire 2 rounds of ammunition, so conserving shots is very easy. The high velocity nature means you can really accurately lay these shots down. Unfortunately, I wasn't aiming good enough here. Now, a word of advice for anybody who may find themselves in the same situation as this P-80 here. If you find yourself with a Horton on your tail, do not fight it in the vertical, fight it in the horizontal. The thing is basically a jet-powered Zero. It will just, well, do that. Now that's my second kill of the match. Unfortunately, the P-80 had called for backup. I have 2 F-8Fs and an F-80C incoming at the moment. First F-8F just went straight overhead. I rolled past and putting it into a dive, and now I've gone from being the predator to being the prey. Now, it is actually quite clever of that P-80 exactly how far he drew me off. I'm 16 kilometres away from my nearest backup at the moment, so I've got to put this nose straight to the ground and open it right up. Now, the F-8F has just put a shot in from behind and punched a hole in my fuel tank. The leak isn't particularly fast, but it's enough that I need to keep an eye on it now. Push this thing out past 650 kilometres an hour. Unfortunately, I've run out of altitude to dive, and the F-8F can dive to that speed as well. However, he can't retain energy like I can, so I am getting the hell out of here. Now, as I'm extending the gap out on this F-8F and closing in on the rest of my team, what would happen if this thing's flight model was repaired and it was up-tiered? Well, using Gaijin's yardstick on German aircraft performance, I could see this thing at either battle rating 7.3 or 7.7 with a correct, fully operating flight model, and that's a major issue. Even with a correct flight model, this plane would be slower than the 262, and we can already see how the 262 performs against aircraft like the F-86 Sabre in Korea. At the moment, this plane is fun to fly, it really is, and it is competitive. In the right hands, it's even lethal. This aircraft would be nothing but a novelty plane. It would be a very easy kill for an F-86 Sabre, or a Panther, or even a high-tier Meteor. It would just be a free kill. The only way I could see this plane being competitive in that environment is as a ground attacker, and that would only last so long as it took the enemy team's aircraft to finally locate you. Now I just take the 229 into the vertical. As I mentioned in the last video, this is the easiest way I've found to arrest this aircraft's speed, yet allow it to retain its energy so it can reinitiate a dive and rapidly return to the attack. Pushing it out past 500, I make my first pass on the F8F1. No love. Bring it up, doing 6 Gs as I bring it around. That is about the maximum G-force you can apply to the wings without breaking it off. The second F8F is about 4.5 kilometres and closing, however it's about to be engaged by another set of Allied fighters, so I'm not too worried about it at the moment, so reinitiating my dive. The F8F1 attempts to burst climb after our 162, doesn't take into account the 229 would have made the turn by now, and I execute him as a result. That's my third kill for the match. And at this point things started to get very quiet. At the moment we only have 3 enemy aircraft still remaining. One of them is the F8F, which is about to die to multiple 162s moving very rapidly on its location. The second is a jet bomber that's actually already taken critical damage and will be crashing within the next few minutes, unable to safely land. And the third is the F80C that I spotted very early in the match, who has decided that discretion is the better part of valour and has climbed out to about 30,000 feet. To his credit, however, he didn't stay there. It took him about 5 minutes before he dropped down, repositioning himself for combat, and then he was re-sighted booming in and out of the clouds on top of the rest of our team. And props to him, he was a pretty good pilot. He was just running into a really bad situation. He was outnumbered about 10 to 1. I was also grateful he dropped out of the clouds when he did. I was looking at my fuel leak and thinking it was nearly time for me to RTB this thing. Thankfully the fuel leak had also slowed down and it's now not actually leaking a whole lot faster than what normal fuel consumption would have been, so that was working in my favour here. So 533 kilometres an hour, I really can't afford to dive to build my airspeed back up at this time. In fact, I've got to climb in and out of the clouds a little bit, so the 162s are going to beat me to target quite easily at the moment. Thankfully he is turning around trying to engage back. That's allowed me to close distance a lot faster than I was anticipating. Line through, trying to get my shots, but the roll rate is beating me here. Get first hit on target. Unfortunately, he's actually going too slow. This is one of those odd situations where the Horton is going too fast. I probably should have popped air brakes then, but I actually forgot the Horton had them. However, he took it into a dive, which allowed me to just roll the plane over and re-engage. And with that dive comes the airspeed that I need to be able to catch him and keep pace with him. Now, of course, the whole team's on him at this point, so it's just a matter of time to who actually manages to get the kill here. And I've just fallen into a perfect position for final shots. First burst over, solid hit. Second burst, fireball, and I take the kill. Now, of course, I am about to get accused by that 162 of kill stealing. Two things I'd like to point out to him. First things first, I was actually the first person on the team to get shots on that F80C, so technically he was cutting in on my action if you want to play the kill stealing card. Second thing I'd like to point out, if you can cram the nose of a 162 that far up the arse of an F80C, and still have a Horton 229 perform a full rollover, drop in behind you, snipe over your shoulder without hitting you, and take out the F80C in front of you, it was never your kill to begin with. You were just keeping it warm for me. And on that bombshell, that is the end of the match. Now let's go through to the results. So, 4 kills for the match, first place for the team, 1,513 points. Special shout out to Dark Flame Wolf for the perfect setup on the F8F. Awards for the match, Fighter Rescuer, Avenger X2, Shadow Strike X2, Windstreak X2, Final Blow, the best squad, which is an interesting one since it was just an auto squad. That alone, the ability to get the best squad may make leaving it on worth it, and of course the Bulletproof Awards. 74,070 silver lines and 9,372 research points, and as you can see, almost completed the engine, which is the last modification I needed at this time to spade this aircraft. So there we have it, a 4-kill match with no backup, no squad, no voice comms to make it work. The plane is very good once you get used to its handling characteristics. And there's also a bit of a dump about what's been rolling through my head recently. I'm not sure I want them to fix this plane, because in fixing the flight model of this aircraft and bringing it up to its historical specs, the battle rating it would have to receive as a result of its fixes, you know, when you compare it against the performance of the aircraft like the 262, it would ruin this plane. Now, the argument can and should be made that this plane should not be fighting Korean-era aircraft, even if its flight model was fixed. However, you know it's going to happen. At this point, I really do hope they leave the 229 alone, just leave it as it is, and we'll take another look at it once the new matchmaker comes into play. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.